Yeah, that's very true. I get bored very easily. So I don't like to. One of the things that I think when I make an album is that make sure that there's no song that's like another. In the sense, obviously, in an album, there has to be a continuity. It's not
Yeah.
just like jazz, blues, rock, or different, just one genre within that album. But I like to make sure there's different keys, different rhythms, different kind of stories, so it's not boring. And there's some kind of journey, if you like, that I like to take a person through. And that's become more and more important as I became more experienced. But in terms of genres, I do a lot of different genres. So I still have a very, now in my music, some folk influence. The singer-songwriters of the 70s in Italy, also like the cantautori italiani, Rizzo di Adalla, maybe you don't know these people, but anyway, those were very much storytellers. And so some of my music is like that and quite somber and quite thoughtful. And so other times I have delved into kind of more dark stuff like electronic music, and I've collaborated with other electronic musicians, and it's been a bit more gothic sounding. But then I also have comedy. Like I do some comedy songs because I find that if I do stuff that's too heavy and sad, it just I need a laugh now. So then I start doing comedy music. So I've got this kind of cabaret folk slash rock, like indie folk rock, and then I have these electronic, strange, experimental projects as well.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of Set Lusting Bruce, your podcast all about Bruce Springsteen, his music, and mostly his fans. I am your host, Jesse Jackson. We are getting off the Bruce train, though I'm sure he will come up as he often does. But we are talking music with a musician. She is calling me from the future. It is Wednesday afternoon where she is. It is Tuesday night where I am. Elisa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so let's start out. Tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah, so I've got a lot of, I'm a bit of a chameleon. I've got a lot of things, a lot of hats that I wear. So it can be a bit overwhelming for me too. Basically, I have a double life. On one hand, I'm a musician and I teach music as well. And I am multi-instrumentalist and a recording performer. So I write songs and then I record them. But I also teach people some instruments, a voice mainly. And on the other hand, I'm also a therapist, a hypnotherapist, and I also write. So I've written a couple of books and I'm writing another one at the moment as well. So I'm just always really busy. Because I'm interested in so many things and I wish I had more hours in the day, but hey.
We all know that feeling. That is great. I am thrilled that you've taken time out of your busy schedule to visit with me. I think we're going to have fun, but I always like to start at the beginning. So talk about
Yes.
where did you grow up and what kind of music was your family listening to?
Yeah, so I'm Italian. So until I was 18, I lived in Italy. And my family was into classical music and opera. My father's a big opera fan. And so I basically grew up with Mozart, Beethoven, Strauss, Mendelssohn, you name it, Chopin, all of those. Although I never learned too much like what the albums were and what the names were, but I recognize a lot of classical music, even if I don't know the actual name of the particular piece of music. And then, but then when I was in my teens, we say about in 1985, I was 10. That's when I discovered actually Bruce Springsteen, and because it was famous, like I think the year before this Born in the USA album was out, and but in Italy we got things a bit later, and so I got to know him. I got to know him in that album. But then at the time, I was a bit of a mainstream person, which I'm totally not now. But at the time when I was a kid, I was into like cringeworthy Rick Astley and Ross. And my brother, he said to me, "You've got to change. This is terrible. I'll give you some music to listen to." So he gave me It's a Kind of Magic by the Queen, The Doors, Led Zeppelin, and I was like, oh my God, and Pink Floyd, and I was like, okay, this is proper music.
Elisa, that is a common story of the as I've done all these episodes, siblings play a big part in your musical journey. If you're the oldest, you end up influencing your younger siblings,
Yeah.
and if you're a younger sibling, you are influenced one way or another. Sometimes they'll go another way, right? Because your older sibling is into something, you end up going to grunge or punk or something. So yeah, that's great. Did you always want to make music?
No, when I was a little kid, well, okay, yes and no, in the
Okay.
sense that singing, absolutely. When I was like basically, I remember 6 years old, I was obsessed with cartoons, of course, being a kid. And in Italy, we had, for each cartoon, you would have a song, a theme song. So with my little recorder, I would press record on the cassette tape and I would record all of the theme songs. And then I basically learned everything by heart because I wanted to be a cartoon singer when I grew up. And so that's the music side. But writing also was like a big thing. Like I used to write stories all the time, poems all the time. But I only started clicking and connecting the two when I was around 18. That's when I thought, oh, I could actually write my own songs rather than just poems. So I guess that's when it all started. But then, of course, there was a really long journey in learning how to do it properly.
Did do you remember any of the cartoon theme songs?
Oh God, what's her name? Magica, Magica Amy. Magica Amy. Remember that one? It's like Magical Amy. And
That is awesome. Very nice.
Cristina D'Avena is the name of the singer that did all of them. So I wanted to be like
Okay,
her.
very nice. So let's talk about, did you, when you decided, like at 18, you realized at like the old TV commercial, peanut butter and chocolate, two great things go together. When you decided that music and writing could go together, what were your next steps? What was the next thing in your journey?
The first thing was I actually got another influence in my inside me, which was from a friend that I made in Scotland. Basically, I was in Scotland at the time, I was living there, and she introduced me to Scottish and Irish and English folk music. And also, she introduced me to psychedelic folk of the 70s, specifically in the UK. And I was like mind blown, amazing. So I started learning all these traditional songs mixed with sort of 70s psychedelic versions of the songs. And then I learned them all, and that was very good because it helped me to understand how to write a story into a song, what needed to be there in terms of verses for chorus, bridge, that stuff. And then once I had a repertoire and I was singing in folk clubs and things like that, that's when I thought, wait a minute, maybe I could write myself something. So I wrote a song. And then the next step was basically recording it straight away. I was like, wow, I should record this. I had a friend who had a studio and he didn't know 100% what he was doing. So it wasn't great, like the actual song. And yeah, I still have it. The recording, you can hear it now that it's not the best recording in the world. What I can do now is like millions miles better. But still, it was a first kind of seed. And that since then, my process has been write, perform. And, and then by that time, I'm sick of those songs, which is a shame because that's when you should go on tour and actually promote the songs. But usually what happens is I'm burnt out by that time, by that moment. And I'm like, no, now I have to write new things, learn new stuff. And so that's my cycle.
I have a real good friend named Sarah Hickman that we met early in her career. And one of the things that frustrated me as a fan, that record companies didn't know what to do with her because every album sounded different. she wanted to do different songs, and there wasn't a this mode of a and Whitney Houston is absolutely beautiful, but a Whitney Houston album sounds like a Whitney Houston album sounds,
Yeah.
and that it sounds like you have a lot of that creative juices as well, where your muse takes you to different types of styles and different music. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's very true. I get bored very easily. So I don't like to. One of the things that I think when I make an album is that make sure that there's no song that's like another. In the sense, obviously, in an album, there has to be a continuity. It's not
Yeah.
just like jazz, blues, rock, or different, just one genre within that album. But I'd like to make sure there's different keys, different rhythms, different kind of stories, so it's not boring. And there's some kind of journey, if you like, that I like to take a person through. And that's become more and more important as I became more experienced. But in terms of genres, I do a lot of different genres. So I still have a very, now in my music, some folk influence. The singer-songwriters of the 70s in Italy, also like the cantautori italiani, Elisa Di Napoli, maybe you don't know these people, but anyway, those were very much storytellers. And so some of my music is like that and quite somber and quite thoughtful. And so other times I have delved into kind of more dark stuff like electronic music, and I've collaborated with other electronic musicians, and it's been a bit more gothic sounding. But then I also have comedy. Like I do some comedy songs because I find that if I do stuff that's too heavy and sad, I need a laugh now. So then I start doing comedy music. So I've got this kind of cabaret folk slash rock, like indie folk rock, and then I have these electronic, strange, experimental projects as well.
When do you, do you remember your first gig playing live?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, my first gig, I was really young, and I was scared, like you wouldn't believe. Like I was trembling, and my paper, I had a piece of paper, and it was trembling, and I was like, oh my God, everybody can see that I'm totally nervous. Ah. So it was not a good thing. It was not a great gig because for years I suffered from performance anxiety, and it really was debilitating because I would be able to sing really well when I was on my own and really be and move myself, move whoever wasn't maybe in the house with me. But then I would go on stage and I'd be feeling like terrified and I would be very stilted. And the performance was all about being perfect. But really, in the end, it was missing the aliveness and that vulnerability. I just was so scared. So that went on for quite a long time. And it's taken me a long time to change it and overcome it and actually enjoy the performing. It can be an amazing drug. It's just like feeling so alive and connected with, it's very present.
Is that what led to your coaching because
No,
of
it's
your
not
own?
the other way around. It's
Okay,
the
so
other way
talk
around.
to me. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I became a hypnotherapist a long time ago, actually, like 25 years ago, something like that. But I, for a long time, it just didn't compute. For whatever reason, I didn't think, oh, wait a minute, I could use hypnotherapy on this problem. I just thought, no, I'll help everybody else, but not helping myself. And then one day, I was just so desperate because I had a really awful gig in which I got so nervous that in the middle of the gig, I blanked, couldn't remember chords, name, lyrics, nothing. And I just ran out of the stage. It was so like humiliating. I was thinking, oh, maybe I have to just give up. Like, this is terrible. I'm having a terrible time. And then somehow, I don't know how, but it dawned on me. I was like, well, maybe there is one thing I haven't tried. I've tried drinking a shot of tequila, that doesn't work. I've tried to take beta blockers, that doesn't work. I've tried improv. Yes, I had a lot of fun. It helped me with the audience, but it again didn't work. All these things, and I thought, but I never tried hypnotherapy. And so then I thought I should go to someone, a colleague or many colleagues. I did. And that was like revelation. Oh, actually this stuff works. Of course it does work. I'm a hypnotherapist. I know that it works. Otherwise I wouldn't have a job. But it's this strange thing. I just didn't apply to myself. And then from then on, I put together a bunch of techniques from different people and started working with people with performance anxiety. And then after that, I wrote a book about it, a course, blah, went on, and it grew legs and arms. So that's how it went.
What got you into being a therapist?
I don't know what it is, but actually, yeah. If I am totally honest, when I was in my teenage years, I wasn't a very happy teen. I was very sensitive and I got bullied at school and I was not happy. And I remember reading or trying to read the Freud's interpretation of dreams, which is incredibly difficult to read. And as a 16-year-old, I couldn't understand it, but I tried. And while I
Okay.
was reading the book, yeah, while I was reading the book, I said to myself, I think you need therapy, Elisa, but you also need to understand what's going on. You should learn psychology. You should get a degree. You should do this. But then I had a talk to a friend of mine who was like, actually this guy that I fancied, and he basically said, oh no, don't do that. And he basically convinced me not to go to university to study psychology, which is crazy when I think about it now that I let someone have
Hmm.
so much power over me. But anyway, even though I didn't do that, I got into it by the back door because basically I decided to study philosophy, and then from philosophy, I went on to Eastern philosophy. So from Western to Eastern. And then from Eastern philosophy, it's very close to get into religion. I started studying altruistic and new religious movements and shaman. And then from there, shamanism. And then when I got into shamanism, I realized that it was extremely interesting, but it was all about accessing an altered state of consciousness. And I thought maybe I can't be a shaman, but a hypnotherapist is the nearest thing to a shaman you get in the Western world without the supernatural element, of course. And so that's when I finished university. Since I decided that I wasn't going to go into academia as I planned beforehand, I thought I should become a hypnotherapist. So that's how I got into that sort of realm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So once you decided, you realized that physician heal thyself, as they say, is that when you said, hey, I know there's other people? Because I can't remember, and you probably know that, but statistically, in people's list of fears, speaking in public is usually very high. Is that why you thought maybe that there might be a little bit of a calling for you to help people find their creativity and share of themselves?
It was more when I started realizing that these two lives I had that ran always parallel, that they needed to join, and it was not natural for me to. I even have two different names. I'm Elisa Di
Yes.
Napoli. I'm Elisa Vulpes. Elisa Vulpes is my alias in terms of like music wise, but really I'm the same person. It's just these two parts of me, and actually they're quite connected. And if what's a good way of connecting them? But actually, this is the way in which I need to connect them within myself. And if I do that, then I can also help other people do the same. Meaning I can help musicians because I really understand what it's like to have this problem as a musician. And so but I also know what to do about it because I have overcome it. So this is the greatest thing. I should really do these things together, put them together.
Alicia, are there common things that people do to self-sabotage themselves being confident to perform, to do public speaking?
I don't know if I would call it self-sabotage unless the person fully believed that they were an imposter and they were like, I
Okay.
just have no right to be here on the stage because I'm not good
Okay.
enough. If that's a very common thought that lies underneath all of this. And
Okay.
then there's the fear of judgment or other people are gonna judge me and find that I am that imposter, that I shouldn't be here, I'm a fraud, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, so that's a very common thing that happens. But that comes from experiences that go beyond music. It could be Sometimes it is to do with music and particular traumatic experience you might have had, but other times it's more than that. There's the family of origin, there's all kinds of things, conditioning, what I call conditioning, like negative conditioning that they have to unpack in order to move forward.
Did Yeah, because I know I I was talking to a friend years ago, and he called me and he said it's my parents' like 50th, 60th wedding anniversary. And I am petrified, but I want to speak. And I said, Michael, I'll be glad to help you. And I talked about some things that worked for me. I write out the speech, even if I'm not going to say it verbatim. I do that and I practice and I make sure that it's in my voice and I'm comfortable. And then
Yeah.
what shocked me is I said, and understand, I am nervous every time I get up to speak. He said,
Hmm.
you're kidding. You never act nervous. I said, oh man, sometimes you don't want to get between me and the bathroom because my nerves are such. I said, but I go and the first joke you get, the laugh, you get your success, and understand that in most cases, our audience is wants us to be successful.
Oh,
And
sure.
I've had comedians on the podcast and we talk about the difference of being funny in a work meeting is totally different than being funny at a club. Because at
Yeah.
work, people want you. They're pulling for you. If you're
Yeah.
performing in a club, it's hey, I've spent a lot of money. Be funny. I think talk are there other things or that you talk about as you're doing this that you find that helps people have that confidence to be themselves?
Yeah, I have a whole free masterclass that I actually do and that I offer people. And it's all about this is like a not quick fix because obviously nothing is a quick fix, but more like a technique that you can use before a performance. And it's not the only thing, but it's like something that at least is helps you to get through it, right? And it's basically a ritual. When I say ritual, I don't mean in a religious term, and not a religious meaning, but what I mean is like this. So first of all, you've got to stop your fight or flight reaction because that if you are there and you perform in that state, things aren't going to go well. So to stop it, the easiest way is to actually how can I explain this in a really short manner? So when you are in a fight or flight state or freeze state, your sympathetic nervous system is activated, and what stops the sympathetic nervous system in its tracks is if you can activate the parasympathetic because it's two switches. One can't be on if the other one is off. You only have, sorry, the other way. You can only be on, one switch can only be on if the other one is off. So both of them can't be on at the same time. So then in order to do that, there's a couple of tricks, so to speak. The first one is one that a lot of people don't know, strangely enough, and that's basically aerobic exercise. And by that, anything that's going to get your heart rate up. So it could be jumping jacks, going up and down stairs, dancing, but you need to get that heart rate up because you want to imitate the natural response of someone who is in a state of actual danger. If there's an actual danger there, there's someone with a gun in your head, okay, what do? You need to either fight this person or run away if you can or play dead. But playing dead is not going to work in this scenario. So it's more like use that adrenaline, use that cortisol, trick the sympathetic nervous system into thinking that you are doing what is needed to defeat this enemy, and then the second thing, once you've done that, is diaphragmatic breathing. So with the diaphragmatic breathing, we are then triggering the parasympathetic nervous system fully. And that's when the third thing you can do, but only after you've done these two things, is to engage your prefrontal cortex, which is all about like positive affirmations and all of that. But you can't actually be rational and analytical and listen to that unless the amygdala, which is the alarm center of the brain, is switched off Because if you are still in a fight or flight, all the affirmations in the world aren't going to work. They just aren't. And there's a reason for that. Too long of an explanation to go into why and all of that. But that makes sense.
It does. It makes a lot of sense. That makes a whole lot of sense. Let's talk books. So you mentioned, what was your first book
You mean that I wrote or that I've read?
that you wrote?
Okay. It's the first book as such is a book called Dare to Be Seen, which is about using hypnotherapy to transform stage fright into confidence. And
Yes.
then I wrote a book that goes with it, like a workbook, to really practically go through the exercises. And then, yeah, other things that I've written is more like stories, poetry, stuff like that.
Yeah. Which one do you have a preference, nonfiction or fiction?
It used to be nonfiction, but I think it's because I thought I wasn't good enough to write fiction, which is ridiculous. I was like, oh no, nonfiction is I can only do that. And then actually, I didn't even think I could do that until I did it. And then I thought, oh, actually, I can do this. And people really think I've had really positive feedback. It's okay, now I can do this. And then now I'm writing a lot more fiction because I can say it's a completely different game. And actually, writing fiction is harder,
Mm.
unless you want to write something that's not very good. If you want to
Yeah.
write something that's meaningful and moving, it's a long road there. Now I
Mhm.
love fiction.
Okay. Let's talk about music for a while. So share a little bit, what music are you doing, and are you still performing live?
I am, although right now, like just right now in the next 6 months, no. And the reason is just simply that I have to focus on composition and learning and teaching. But after that, like in the next 6 months, after 6 months, my focus will absolutely be performing. Yes, I still do perform, but not very often. I like to do festivals or big gigs. I can't really be bothered with silly small stuff. It's just I've done that so long that it's like no. Like I'll do it for my friends, of course, but not
Yeah.
in other ways. And in terms of yeah, composing, no, I'm composing. I'm making music that's evolved because the last three albums were all about indie folk rock and indie folk. And now, and mainly guitar, because basically I've been playing guitar for a long time. But since the pandemic hit, I started playing piano again and I've become obsessed with the piano. And so now I'm writing for piano, like everything is piano music. And it's quite, again, I do the two things. Either it's comedy or it's quite soulful, folky, but not folk, like new folk, a lot of ballads and storytelling, very much about what's happening in the world. Other people's stories, though, not my stories anymore because I've done my thing. I don't think my stories are that interesting anymore, but I'm more interested in other people's stories now.
Why do you think your stories aren't interesting anymore? That's an
Well,
interesting
like,
statement.
yeah, I guess it's because all my early songs were all about me and my problems and my relationship and breakups and all of that, right? And it's, yeah, that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. But I guess after a while, it gets a bit old and it's, yeah, okay, can we just move on now and do something different? So the first step was, okay, I'm going to take the piss out of myself. Like, not in a bad way, but just, like, come on, it's not that bad. And then this next step was like, okay, now I want to give a voice to people that don't have a voice. Now I actually am more interested in social issues. I guess I've grown up. I'm not a kid anymore. So I'm
Yeah.
interested in more serious things.
Do so where can we find your music?
Most of my music is, excuse me, is on my it's on Spotify, but also on my site. So on my site, I guess you'll find a lot more because there's and also on Bandcamp. So elisavulpes.com is my site, Elisa Vulpes on Spotify, and Bandcamp as well, Elisa Vulpes. So that's where most of my things are. There are some back catalog stuff only on Bandcamp because I don't put everything out there. Like there's some early albums and things that I wouldn't want to be there
Mhm.
for everyone. Yeah, and yeah, I think that's it.
If someone wanted to check out your music, do you have some suggestions on where they start?
Yeah, I think the best would be okay, you can either go on Spotify and search there, or you could go on to elisavulpes.com and you can actually get 5 free songs from me. So there's basically 5 of my best songs by joining my mailing list. And if you just wanted to have a chat with me as well, I'm having a kind of a VIP hangout on the 6th of January where I would play my new songs, the ones that I am about to release in next year. I will be releasing a song that I really am excited about because getting a producer to help me with the production for this is the second time I use an external producer that I don't produce myself.
Hmm.
And the reason is that I think the last song I did with a producer was phenomenal. It was just so amazing because this other person enriched what I had put down and gave it this extra layer. And so I'm quite excited to collaborate now and see what happens.
Which song was that?
It's this song that's called Nothing We Can Do. And so it's not been recorded yet, it's
Okay.
just got a demo, but I will share it with people on my Hangout.
Okay.
And yeah, and it's about what's happening now in the world. And it's this feeling that sometimes I think some of us get that, oh, there's nothing we can do. Is it really true that there's nothing we can do? So it's about that, seeing like all the tragedies and climate change and war and this and that and hitting us all of the time and this feeling of, oh, gee, but what can I do? What can I do? So that's what the song is about.
So I just went to the link and I see there is a song inspired by the TV show Yellow Jackets.
Oh,
I am
yeah,
a
yeah,
massive Yellow Jackets fan. It is so brilliant yet also disturbing. Talk to me a
yeah.
little bit about that.
Oh, yes, that's the song that I was telling you about that I did with a producer last year.
Yeah.
I wanted to get into sync, so I got onto a course where we could talk to some music supervisors and I started thinking, oh, I love this show. I'd love to write a song for this show. And so I basically just wrote a song for the show, just inspired, thinking, oh, maybe they will pick it up, maybe not, but it doesn't matter because I just want to have some inspiration. Like it just inspired me. Not only it wasn't important whether I got onto the show or not, but I gave it a go and it was a good excuse to write a song. Yeah, so I wanted to be a little bit dark, and the song is definitely dark. And it brought me back to my early music when I had a band called the Moon Whispers, which was a lot kind of gothy sounding back in, I don't know, 20 years ago or something like that, or
Mhm.
15 years ago. And so, yeah, that song is all about, it's actually, it was inspired by the movie, even though it's not about anything that happens in the series. Sorry, not movies, series.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a song called The Night is Falling, and it's actually about Alzheimer's, meaning it's about what I imagine it might be like to have Alzheimer's when you are aware for just a second of what's happening to you, but then you fall back into this labyrinthine place, almost like um it's almost like I think of it as a labyrinth, as in if your thoughts go inside a branch of a tree and then you forget where the trunk is, or you're lost somewhere in a leaf out there in this particular branch of the tree, and then you're like, but I don't know how to get back to the trunk. That's how I visualize it.
Good. So I'll cut this out. Do you mind sending me a clip that I could play? I'd insert in
Yeah,
this in the podcast. Okay, great.
of course. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I'll do that. That'll be fun. Okay. So let's talk about currently. Are there any musicians you're listening to that you're enjoying listening to?
Oh man, what a few. I am quite eclectic. I have really
Sure.
weird taste because I can go from listen to Chopin. I absolutely love Chopin's music. But then from there, I might go to listen to Amanda Palmer, who's one of my big influences. I love Amanda Palmer.
I was lucky enough to see her perform in Dallas, and then I drove down in Austin to watch her book signing.
Yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
heard her, I loved her book, and it made me want to buy a ukulele, right? Like I don't play a musician, but yeah, I just adored her, and I found her because of a relationship with Neil Gaiman, and
All right.
and then I adored her freedom and her ability to I don't give an F music that's just so well done. Yeah, she's pretty amazing.
Yeah, especially the Dresden Dolls, and I'm so stoked they're back. I can't believe it. Like I wish that I could see them, but they only do shows in the States. And she was
Yeah,
here in New Zealand for a while. I saw her live in Edinburgh a long time ago, and I actually saw her with her husband at the time, Neil Gaiman,
yeah,
and in this really cool alternative place. She's just such an amazing, like you say, spontaneous and very alternative, but not because she wants to be cool. She just is.
yeah. I agree. Yeah, she's just a
Yeah.
really awesome. Yeah,
Yeah. So it's in terms of like new music, yeah, but the way I do it is I'm too busy. So what I do is I ask my friends to give me recommendations
right,
and send me like Spotify links, a lot of playlists. And so then I listen to the playlists. And when I'm like, oh wow, who's this? Then I will add them to my channel. But the thing is, I've got this weird, annoying bad habit, which is that I find it very difficult to remember the names of things.
right.
I think it's because when I was a kid, I used to think, oh, names are not important. It's the
Sure.
concept that matters. And so now I still have this thing that when people ask me for names, I blank out and I'm like, I don't know. Who, what? Who am
Yeah.
I?
So, what's next for you? You always have a full plate. It's very clear. So, well, let me
Mhm.
ask it this way, not what's next. What haven't you done that you still want to? What's still on your to-do creative list?
Oh, there's one thing, I don't know if I want to do it, but lately okay, a couple of things. One is I would like to sing in a band that where I am just a singer. So the other people are doing their thing, and I'm not playing any instruments except for singing. And I want to do that because it can be quite freeing, and I could focus all my energy on lyrics and the singing, the emotional experience of that. So that's one thing. Another thing that I haven't done is there is this album that I started like ages ago, and it's like this electronic music album. But while I was starting to use it to record on Ableton Live, I don't know it as well as Logic, and I realized, oh man, I'm a bit out of my depth. I think I need help with this. So I think the next project will be to get someone else on board with that. And finally, and this one's really strange, and I don't know if I really want to do it, but I've been told by other people that sometimes especially my comedy music, sounds a bit kind of musicals, like a musical. And then loads of people were like, "Oh, well, you're right, just like music for musicals." And I thought, "What? I don't know. I don't know about this." So then I started going to musicals to just see whether I like it or not. And I thought, huh, maybe if I found a musical that was really good, I could consider doing that. Like just do it for fun. Apply,
Oh,
get an audition and see.
that sounds exciting. Those are all very cool things. Good.
Yeah.
So, what should I've asked you that I haven't?
Oh man, what should you ask me that I haven't? You've been very thorough. I guess, oh, maybe, okay, there's one thing that we haven't discussed. I recently started a Substack for my short stories.
Okay.
And the reason for that is that I've been writing this short stories book for ages, but I wasn't getting motivated because like it takes a long time to write a book, and I thought what could just help me to get accountable and just do it. And then I thought, oh, Substack. So basically, I've started it, and now I am publishing a short story a month from the
Okay.
book that will be eventually out, but
Okay.
it's all for free and it's just an opportunity to actually get it done and for people to have some a fresh story every month that's absolutely free. So
Okay.
you can find me there.
You'll send me a link
Yeah, I can
so
send
I
you a
can
link for
include
all of
that in the
these
show
things.
note. Very nice.
Absolutely.
Good. Very
Yeah.
nice. Any final thoughts before we get to the Mary question?
No, I'm okay.
Okay.
No, I'm
All
okay.
right. All right. Thank you so much. Before I let you go, I end every podcast with the Mary question. Jay Armstrong is a retired honors English teacher, but when he was teaching, he would give his students the lyrics to Thunder Road,
Yeah,
and they would study it if it was a poem, talk about
yeah.
the Bruce's choice of lyrics, talk about the imagery he builds, and then he would at the end of the day he would ask his class, does Mary get in the car? So, Alyssa, that is your question. Does Mary get in the car at the end of Thunder Road?
Okay, this the whole song is basically a pitch to this lady. And
Yes.
if this was a movie, if this was a movie, since it's very cinematic, you can picture the small town. It's not very good. This is a bit of a theme as well in Bruce Springsteen's songs anyway. And we come on, there's something better out there. If it was one of those movies, she would get into the car, obviously. That would be the end of the movie. That's it.
Right.
So it depends, is this real life or is this a movie? And I would love it to be like a movie, but sometimes people do, they're afraid and they don't. So I can't tell. I would hope she does get in the car, but hey.
I think that's a great answer. Appreciate that. Yeah, I think that you've zeroed in, and that is what Jay talked about when he was on the first time about this, is that it takes courage to make a decision, right? When you choose to go to the unknown, it's scary. And
Yeah.
often the fear stops us from trying, which goes back to a lot of what you discuss. And in
Yeah.
your kind of calling to help people. So yeah,
Mhm.
I think that's a great answer. And is she going to be afraid to make that decision, to make that leap? We don't know. And that's why it's a
Well,
great
I think,
question.
yeah, I think she definitely would be afraid, but whether she does it in spite of the fear or whether she listens to the fear, that's the real question.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. All right. If someone wants to reach you, what's the best way?
Just go on to elisavulpes.com. There's everything there. You can chat with me. There's a chat box thing. Sign up for my mailing list. That's the best way to hear from me. I send you usually an email every 2 weeks, something like that. It's the
I
best way.
absolutely am going to sign up. I saw that if you sign up, you can get a free book, which is cool.
Yes. Yeah.
And
And yep. You can
and
get a free book. You can get a free song. There's loads of stuff.
yeah, and I look forward to seeing what you do next. And I hope the next time you have a project to promote, you come back.
Absolutely. I'd love
Yeah,
to.
I love this. All right. This was so much fun. I appreciate your time and everything. And how tight will I do a little business? All right, listeners, I'm always looking for feedback. There are multiple
Mhm.
ways to reach me. Our email address is setlustingbruce@gmail.com. Our voicemail is 469-249-2442. You can find the show on Twitter, aka X, at setlustingbruce. Mine is at Jesse Jackson DFW. Going to your podcast player and giving us a 5-star review and rating will always help. Thank you again, Elisa, for joining me. I hope you had a good time.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For now, everyone, be kind, be safe, and remember, they say that love comes and goes. But, darling, what do they know? I'm reaching for heaven. We'll make it there. Darling, it's just the power of prayer. Thank you,
Mhm.
and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Bye.